Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Divergent Discussion. I'm Michelle, and I'm the founder of Caboose. We exist to create connection, belonging, and understanding for neurodivergent people. At the heart of what we do, we have neuro nuggets, which are our short, practical guides to help you understand how your brain works and find ways to make work and life easier. And I'm very excited that Zoe is actually one of our contributors to Neuro Nuggets. So welcome, Zoe. I'm going to run through your bio. Now, I am going to read it because, I can't remember everyone's bio. So,
fair enough.
Zoe is an autistic, an ADHDer, and an ADHD coach based in Canada. So after receiving her own late diagnosis of ADHD, she realised that so much of what she believed to be character flaws about herself was actually her ADHD all along. She's learned a lot about ADHD and that we don't need to try harder. We need to try things differently. She's passionate about sharing ways we can reframe our approach to support our unique brains. I can certainly relate to that. I think when I realised I was an ADHDer, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And whilst not everything is always a superpower, I do value a lot of my ADHD traits in life and work. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's okay. So when we hear the phrase misunderstood struggles of ADHD, what does that mean to you personally and professionally in the coaching work you do?
Yeah, I think it's really the gap between how we're perceived and what is actually happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. And can you give me an example of what that might look like?
For sure. So I think a super common one that a lot of people could relate to is when you're on the couch scrolling on your phone and you desperately want to get off and do just about anything else, but for some reason you just can't. It's like you're magnetized to that phone. And so people looking at you might think that you're so lazy, you just waste away every day watching videos on your phone. But really, you are severely struggling with your executive functions. And there's just so much that's going into it that's keeping you locked in. So I think, when people look at it and perceive it, they're seeing lazy, but what's really going on is the ADHD struggle.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? My daughter has a different type of ADHD to me, and she has a lot of trouble and describes it, as, I really want to do these things, but, I just can't. And so, that is always, something I've learned, even though it's hard, I think, as a parent to see that too, or as a manager in a workplace, it is understanding it.
Yeah.
So many ADHDers are told, but you function some of the time. What does that sort of phrase mean, and why is the inconsistency like one of the cause?
Yeah. So this is what we would call the paradox of ADHD, which is where you seem to be doing everything and super functional sometimes, and then other times you just can't seem to do anything. And it's very confusing for both the person experiencing it, but also everyone around you, because they're like, you're amazing when you're doing this one thing, but we can't even get you to do this other thing.
Yeah.
And it's really comes down to a lot of interest. Interest is a big factor in dictating our focus, and it creates situational variability between tasks. And so this also plays into a lot of the stigma because it makes people see our struggles as more of a choice when it's not. It's really, really not. It's just so much easier. Our brains need the interest to be able to focus. So when that isn't present, it's really just harder. Yeah.
I often, again, relating to my daughter, absolutely amazing academically and, super hyper focused on study and getting those things done. But then, there is a variance in, executive functioning on day-to-day life skills, I suppose. And so it is hard. And I think some workplaces find that difficult too, because they see someone who's really good at something and then not so good at, kind of the day-to-day tasks.
Yeah, it can be really hard with work, especially because often people get into a field because they're passionate about it and doing that main thing that they love about it. But every job is going to have parts of it that you don't love so much. And with ADHD, it's not just, I don't love this, but we just got to do it. It feels almost impossible to get yourself to go through those things that aren't the interesting part of your job.
Yeah, I was coaching someone last year from a law firm amazing lawyer, and obviously that's the hyper focus and the interest there. And we all know that with jobs, there are parts of the jobs that are not so exciting, as you just said. And for lawyers, a lot of it is around that sort of practice management, which is the billing and time recording and the housekeeping of your job, whereas the actual core part, very high performing. So yeah, very interesting when you start to look at it like that.
Yes, for sure.
I do wonder sometimes, like with the different types of ADHD, I know that when I've done presentations for organisations, a lot of people don't know that there's the hyperactivity and the inattentive and combined. And I do wonder sometimes, depending on the type you have, whether that changes things a little.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too sure how it would interact with this specifically. I feel like just in general, even between the different types of ADHD, even within the different types of ADHD, each individual is going to experience it differently and have different things that are challenges and different things that they don't struggle with as much. So I feel like it's really individual more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, diversity within neurodiversity, diversity within neurotypicals. I mean, everybody is different and how they show up. And I think the other thing for people to remember is there's all the coexisting conditions, so if you're an ADHDer, then it's different again. But I suppose with the misunderstanding, I'm keen to hear your perspective. There is this misunderstanding around, some of the things you've mentioned about, maybe people perceiving you being lazy or good at some things or inconsistent. How does that, impact the person's self-esteem and overall identity?
Yeah, well, especially without an ADHD diagnosis, but even still true with a diagnosis, we internalize all of this negative messaging that we're given because people are perceiving us as lazy or withdrawn or whatever it may be. When you hear that so many times, it only makes sense that you would believe that it's true about yourself because it feels like consistently people are saying the same thing about you. And so that leads people to feel the need to overcompensate, which ultimately leads to burnout or masking. Masking gets talked a lot about in the autism world, but people do mask their ADHD traits as well. And it's also just really isolating to feel like nobody really understands you, like when you're trying hard and because even though you're trying so hard to get off that phone, like in the earlier example, nobody's seeing that. They're just seeing that you still can't.
The outward.
So yeah, it can become quite isolating as well.
It's so true. And I, again, my daughter and I have had lots of conversations about this, recently because, there's the executive functioning, there's the remembering to do tasks or making time to do the tasks. And she describes similar things to what you've just described. And I think even when you have a deep understanding of it as a family, it's still, there's life requirements, I suppose. And I think for her, it feels like a bit of shame that, and another client of mine also used the same word when she was describing this, that she doesn't want to invite people to her house, or she doesn't want to admit that she can't run her practice, her legal kind of aspect of the practice, because she feels a lot of shame internally about it. And I think that's sort of heartbreaking for me. I sort of think, well, how do we get over that? Hopefully doing these kinds of discussions and, making as many people aware of the challenges that we can will
Yeah.
help.
For sure. And I think it's so true what you say, because I experience the same thing too, where in my inner circle and my family, there is a lot of understanding about ADHD and neurodiversity, but there still is not as much awareness and stigma in the wider world
Mm.
outside of my little bubble.
Yeah.
So that can, and you're not going around and saying, I have ADHD to every single person you interact with. So people
No.
might still be thinking about you or making comments about you in a certain way, not
Yeah.
really understanding. I think if we can get to the point as a society where people see someone struggling with something and automatically think, well, how can I support them? Not like diagnosing people with ADHD on a whim, but saying, okay, this person might be struggling with their executive functions, because there's a lot of reasons outside of ADHD people can have executive dysfunction.
Yeah. Exactly.
So just raising awareness like that and being like, why is this, in the workplace, why is this employee forgetting, or why are they late? Coming at it with more curiosity and a supportive lens, and just learning how to identify those executive function struggles would just help
Yeah.
so many people. So many people.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you're doing work, in the coaching space. And, I know I get a lot of reward from doing work with people to help with strategies. When people come for coaching, they've obviously identified that they need some help as well. I'm always conscious that it's up to us to help organizations and communities understand the traits of ADHD or ADHD or autism, the coexisting conditions. But how do you feel about, the kind of self-supporting, like reaching out for help, or, using family members to help or coaches to help? Do you think that people have that ability to ask for help, or do you think that there's an inherent, I can't ask for help because of, I don't know, like shame or something
That's an
else?
interesting question. I think a lot of people, because a lot of the things that ADHD impacts are sort of things a lot of people would consider basic. Like they have this idea that they should be able to do it because everybody else seems to be doing it. So I feel like a lot of people let themselves struggle without support, whether that's professional or self-support, for longer than they need to, because they feel like they should just be able to do it. And if they just
Yeah.
apply themselves, they'll be able to do it. And like we were talking about earlier, the paradox of ADHD, they might think, well, I can do it when it's preparing for my knitting club that I love. I should be able to do it preparing for this work meeting. So they know that they have those skills and they think they can just force themselves into applying it somewhere else. And I think that definitely keeps people from reaching out for help, because it's not about willpower or forcing yourself. It's about finding those strategies that work for you to
Exactly.
be able to use those skills that you do have in all the areas of your life.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, there's maybe it's a denial thing that you think because you should be able to, or as you say, that other people are, and even other neurodivergent people are, I think there is that barrier to asking for help, or maybe there's not wanting to put the burden on the other person either.
For sure.
Yeah. We talked about like getting off the phone and this sort of barrier to that.
Yeah.
I guess like when someone with ADHD can't start a task, whether it's clean up your room or do a piece of work that you need to get done on that particular day, What do you think's really happening in the brain and the nervous system?
Yeah, I actually just recently watched this webinar. It was neuroscience ADHD coaches need to know. And yeah,
Great.
it was really
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
And
Tell me
he was
everything.
he was talking about that there's this misconception dopamine is while you're doing something enjoyable. Like dopamine is released while you're doing the enjoyable thing, but it's more so before you're doing it in anticipation of. So when you are sitting there anticipating that you're about to do something boring, you're not getting that dopamine release. And
Yeah.
so it's harder to get yourself into action. And we've been talking about executive functions a lot, but activation, like the literal ability to activate into a task, is one of the executive functions. And that struggles when you have ADHD. A lot of ADHDers also might be perfectionists, have perfectionist tendencies. So sometimes that could be showing up too. Like the situation isn't perfect, you don't have the perfect setup. And so that can be a barrier to initiating as well. And
Yeah.
another thing from the webinar is about, he was talking about the inner conflict in the brain and like threat prediction. And so if it's something that you've struggled with before or has taken up a lot of your energy and you're in that more survival mode, your brain is going to prioritize surviving over those higher level skills. So you might just be having nervous system dysregulation on a larger level, and your brain is like, we can't do tasks, we need to survive. Like we need our energy to survive, not like to go do work or whatever it may be.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And, we might try and get the link to that research and pop it in to the
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I've been talking to people about, these sort of this barrier to tasks, and I've also wondered whether it's when you feel quite overwhelmed and not having a plan of attack, then not just for ADHDers, but for a lot of the population, when you have too many things to do and you don't have a plan, it can be problematic. Do you think that plays into it?
I was actually just thinking about this. We hopped on.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because with ADHD, we can get overwhelmed. When the plan is too big, there's too many steps. You look at that and you're like, this is too many things. I can't do all of these things. So the plan in itself becomes a barrier. So often in the coaching that I do, a lot of the time it's just, what is the first step?
Yeah.
Like, because you're struggling to get started, and starting is always the hardest part. And oftentimes people kind of know what to do once they get started. So we just need to get you in the door.
Yes.
So it's like, what is that very first step? Sometimes it's literally just sitting at the computer.
Yeah.
And like opening your emails or something. Just what is not going to make your brain be like, I don't want to do that right now. Like that's too much. It has to be like, okay, that is something I can do.
Yeah. I was talking to a team this week about the sort of weaving in the dopamine tasks. So, yes, there's a lot of boring tasks that one has to do, and actually weaving in something that you really love to do, even if you're just doing it for 10 minutes between bigger tasks. And I know even for me that is helpful, right? You sort of do a few things and then go back to the more interesting task. And it's not always productive, but overall, if you balanced it out with an ADHDer, I think it is actually more productive for the ADHDer to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always say that fun is fuel for ADHD brains.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Like just the other day, I posted on my Instagram, it's the middle of the day and I'm playing a video game. Why? Because I could feel that I was resisting doing tasks. I was kind of slowing down, and I know myself enough to know I can hop on and play 1 or 2 games and then get off and feel refreshed
Yeah.
because
Cool.
I got filled up by having that little bit of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday about that, like either doing something fun like that, and I like that, fun is fuel. We might use that hashtag
You're welcome to use it.
somewhere. Thank you. But also just taking that break, whether it's a fresh air break or go and get a cuppa, move around. Someone was telling me what they do is after a 45-minute block of work, they get up and do some squats or something just to get the blood moving around around the body.
Yeah, something that I love to do, I have a mini trampoline, and
Oh, yeah.
so I'll just
Great.
go hop on that for like 5 or 10 minutes, and it's movement, which is great for ADHD, and it's fun. And I'll just put
Yeah.
on music, and it's a great time.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. I like that idea because mini trampolines, they don't take up heaps of space, but you're
No,
still
they
getting
don't.
the same, feelings, I suppose, of the movement. You can do it
Yeah.
between tasks. Yeah. I love
It's
that.
great. It's really great.
Emotional regulation is a big part of ADHD, but it is often overlooked. It wasn't until a few years ago that I realised that emotional regulation is actually part of the executive
Yeah.
dysfunction that we have. So, that was a few years ago. And when my son was diagnosed, aged 4, a long time ago now, he had a lot of emotional dysregulation. And I thought that was just emotional dysregulation. I didn't realize it was part of executive functioning. But can you sort of tell us what it's like to, experience that, ADHD overwhelm or emotional flooding that feels like it's coming from the inside? And why is that sort of overlooked, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's, at least in my experience, frustrating more than anything else because you may be able to acknowledge that your reaction isn't necessarily rational or proportional to what has occurred, but also that you don't really have a choice and you don't have maybe the tools or skills to regulate that you need, but also like just having a big reaction can be part of it. And that might be okay, but it doesn't feel okay because we have all been taught that it's not okay. And it's also just exhausting, like the emotional roller coaster. I know a lot of people experience kind of mood swings or like the highs are very high, but the lows are very low. And so kind of swinging between those two things just gets very tiring, and having those big reactions is tiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do to re-regulate personally when that happens? Is there a strategy that you...
I mean, honestly, I feel like medication has been the most helpful thing for regulating
Yeah.
my mood and emotions, which
Yeah.
I actually
Okay.
really didn't expect. So that was kind of a surprise for me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think just recognizing that you are in a moment of dysregulation, removing yourself if you can from that scenario, and then figuring out what those regulating things are for you. So for me, that would be just being in a quiet space alone with my crafts and maybe some like sensory fidget tools.
Great. Yeah. When we think about what, partners, parents, friends, or workplaces can do, what responses help an ADHDer when they're stuck, and what responses unintentionally make things worse?
Yeah, the unhelpful stuff. I think the neuronormative advice, it can just feel really, really frustrating when people are, suggest just make a list or, the things like that that we've all, or like just set a reminder. It is definitely well intentioned, but I think it can frustrate the person because they've tried it. They've tried all
Yeah.
of those things, and
Yes.
clearly it is not enough. And so it's kind of goes back to that feeling of misunderstood. Like almost kind of like, you think I'm not trying those things?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other big one is especially pertaining to the workplace is when accommodations are seen as special treatment. So I think a really big one is remote access to work or school. That's often seen as a treat, or in the workplace, that would be considered a perk of the job. Whereas for someone, it might actually be an accommodation. Same goes for like extra time on tests or just all the things. So yeah, really, it would be helpful to really recognize those are accommodations for a need, not, an extra little perk they're getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Other things that could be helpful is being open to listening and understanding and doing your own research so that it doesn't fully rely on those who are impacted to educate you. Also recognizing that not everybody's experience is the same. So kind of having a balance between those two things. And if it is a person who has authority to create a more universal design that really just accommodates everyone more. Some people still may need a little extra, but there's a lot of things that we can do that would just help everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. It is easy, I think, for people to be well-intentioned in offering solutions. I've always said with my coaching and even with my daughter is, this is what works for me, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, or this is what's worked for other clients. And here's a range of things that can help. My daughter just is trying a new, and I think it's a little bit about experimenting too with try it for a week or two and see if it helps. But she's trying to make sure her daily kind of tasks are front and center of her laptop for university. So everything, any due dates, anything like that. And yes, it does rely on her opening the laptop, but again, because it's an interest, she is doing that. But I think it's a great way of her experimenting with trying out a new system. And I think being open to that has been really helpful. Whereas if I said, oh, well, this is what I do, it might not be as well received.
Yes. And I think with the tips, it can get, they're definitely well-intentioned, but when somebody is trying tip after tip after tip and none of them are working, it's like
it
you
can
start
be
to feel
overwhelming.
like it's overwhelming and you're like, what's wrong with me? This is supposed to be helping. And so I think that's where coaching is really powerful, because I'm not prescribing tips to my clients. It's about really understanding their life and who they are and figuring out what's going to work, because the tips are just, they can become a lot.
Yeah. I can see how that would happen. And it's the same, I think, with anything when you're given parenting advice or other advice.
Yes.
Most people, if they want your opinion or strategies, then I think that's when the relationship has to be strong enough for you to be able to have a dialogue about, idea, brainstorming or something like that. So
yeah. And also kind of going back to the original question, things that would be helpful is if you do have a suggestion, to ask if they're open to a suggestion.
Yeah,
just
great.
to see if they are open to it, because they might be like, yes, I will take all the suggestions, but they might be like, you know what, I'm a little bit tired of trying things right now.
Yeah. So you created this, how to organize for ADHDers. What are a few of these strategies that you think work for ADHD brains without relying on that willpower that we talked about before, or that sort of, motivation, I suppose, of getting off the phone or cleaning up your room or starting the task?
Yeah. So a few of my favorite ones. My number one is body doubling. I think it's just so simple, but so effective. There's a website called FocusMate, which is online, and they have, you can get like 3 sessions a week, and they'll just match you up with a random person, and you hop online and you body double together. And I just love it so much. I use it all the time. So yeah, body doubling, which if you don't know, it's literally just having somebody else there working together. Doesn't have to be on the same thing. Just two focused people, two or more, in a space, whether it's physical, virtual, and it just creates that atmosphere of like getting stuff done. It's a little bit of external accountability. So I really love that. Another one is creating new routines through habit stacking. So creating new routines, very challenging.
Habit stacking, it's my favorite thing.
That's your favorite? Yeah. So again, if for anyone who doesn't know, it's just taking the new habit that you want to adopt and adding it on before or after a habit that you already do. So if you want to start washing your face, but you already brush your teeth, you just add it on after brushing your teeth, before or after. So that's a really great way to develop new routines. And then we were kind of touching on the fun is fuel concept, just doing something fun before you do the boring thing, which sounds counterintuitive, but that's what our brains can need. Can be a little hard to not get carried away with the fun thing, so it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it can be a really great strategy. If you are the kind of person that gets carried away, just making it something like listening to your favorite song, not putting it on like a playlist or shuffle, so it just ends.
Yeah.
That can be a good one.
Yeah.
And then we also talked about just breaking it down into that first smallest possible step to just enter the thing you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Do you think with the fun for fuel, timer would work for people? I know timers work for some people, but like would a timer at the end, like to end the fun work? Or do you think that that is also individual?
I think if you're the kind of person who timers work for, it will work. But a lot of ADHDers just ignore and keep going. Something I like, the name for it is slipping my mind, but it's when you use naturally occurring things as a timer. So if you
like normally eating lunch or something.
Yeah, or like if you're knitting, just doing one row. If you have rice cooking for 20 minutes, doing it while that's going on. So when it's more ingrained in our life and more tangible, we're more responsive to it. Yeah, it helps with our struggling sense of time.
Yeah, I like that. One of the other strategies that Carla Caboose, clinical lead, suggested just recently was the concept of functional rooms. And I really liked that idea, actually. It's where you might do a particular task in a particular space so that you're not always, say, sitting at this desk, which everyone knows by the painting where I'm sitting, but moving your computer to another space to do a particular task. So if you're doing something, boring, I would say admin can be boring for some people, take the laptop outside or, somewhere where it's fresh air, or take it to, your courtyard or somewhere else so it's sort of seen as a break from the fun space, I kind of liked that idea. Again, who knows, everybody's very different, but it was a unique concept that I quite liked. Might try it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's like it's almost a way to add more novelty as well, which can be interest. Like when you're in a new place, you're just getting that new stimulation that you don't like. It kind of just freshens things up because it can get stale just being in the same place. Yeah,
it can. Absolutely. So NeuroNuggets, we're very excited here at Caboose. We've launched NeuroNuggets, and we have a lot of people who've benefited from watching a lot of the nuggets. In your series, the misunderstood struggles of ADHD, what's one thing you hope people watching can take away from that or understand from that?
That you're likely trying harder than a lot of people to accomplish the same things, and that effort isn't always proportional to the results.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, we've had lots of great feedback so far on the nuggets, and organisations who are looking to improve their overall awareness and inclusion strategies are really jumping on board now to give access to their staff, which is super cool. So
Oh, amazing.
I hope that, and actually a lot of the law firms that I work with are coming on board because they see the benefit of, having the coaching and then using neuro nuggets afterwards. So it's exciting times. So what would you say to the ADHDer who has spent most of their life feeling misunderstood or trying hard?
I would say that the way you are makes sense, and you don't need to be fixed because nothing is broken. You just need to learn the things that work for you, even if they don't work for anyone else.
Yeah, I love that because it is about the strategies for you. And, with the consistent theme through this conversation, it's been about what works for you. And I think, you can take away strategies from this conversation. You can take it from neuro nuggets, you can take it from friends and family. But ultimately, I think like anything, it's really up to the individual to see what works for them and experiment or be curious about, what is and isn't working.
Absolutely. And to just be open to what it is, like, even if it's something that you think is really weird, or it's not the should, to just be open to it anyways, because if it works, it works. And that's all that really matters, even if
That's right.
nobody else understands. If people are like, why don't you just do it the typical way? That's your way, and you can own your way.
I think that's great. Yeah. Own your way. Another great statement
Getting lots
there.
of quotes.
Thank you. I know, lots of quotes. Yes. Great. I love it. Now, for our audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, either for Zoe or myself. Happy to answer anything. I had, when I was doing the presentation this past week to an organisation, we had a lot of questions about sensory sensitivities, and we haven't really touched on those. I think a lot of people, again, maybe don't realise that sensory sensitivities are part of the ADHD diagnosis. I know for myself, I wasn't diagnosed until very late, but I've always liked this sort of soft t-shirt-like material with all my shirts and tops, and never knew why, but there are also other things. Do you yourself, Zoe, have any sensory sensitivities that
lots and lots. I mean, even just before this, I was on a walk and I was like, oh my gosh, it's too bright today. Like my eyeballs feel like they're burning because it's just so, and it's winter. It's winter here. I know it's summer though.
And it's still,
it was so bright today. So stuff like that, just with clothing, just like so many things with clothing. I'm really particular about it. I've kind of stopped wearing makeup on my eyes, especially because it just like was really bothering me.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of things which honestly don't bother me as much as they used to, because I really just started recognizing them and making those adjustments for myself and being like, I don't need to make myself unnecessarily uncomfortable when I don't have to. Like I'll do sunglasses indoors if it is like a really
if it feels right.
If it feels right, yeah.
I
do have like earplugs for really loud stores, things like that.
Yeah, it's funny you saying right before this. So I have a funny story right before this too, is I currently have a loan car. My car is in for repair, and my partner took the keys and he went to move it because it was needed to move it into the driveway, and he came back and he put the keys back into my bag, which is just over to the left of me, and I'm sitting here working away. I'm like, I can smell the car. Why can I smell this car? And it's a loan car, right? So it's not my car. It's not my smells. But I did notice in this loan vehicle that it's got they must have put some car-smelling liquid into the cup holders.
Yeah.
And I recalled this from driving it yesterday, and I was like, why can I smell the car? My goodness, I can smell the car. And then I realized it's probably coming from the keys. And so I got them out of my bag and I kept smelling them. And I'm like, oh my God, it smells like the car. And now my handbag's going to smell like the car. And I went to him. I said, did you put the keys in the cup holder with the liquid? And he goes, yeah, probably. Why? And I said, smell this. And he goes, yeah, it kind of smells a little bit, but not really. And I'm like, it's over there inside the bag, zipped up. And I'm sitting here going, I can still smell it as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one of those very sensory noses.
I have like a million stories like that. Like, even just one from the other day. I put a new garbage bag in my garbage bin and it's scented. And it was, I
can't
was
buy
like,
those.
I think we have them for my cat's litter.
Oh, yes.
So usually we put the litter in there. But I put it in my office and I was like, I can't focus. I'm getting a headache. I had to put it in another room. I went to a restaurant. The bathroom had really strong incense and it stuck on my hair for days. Even after I washed, I emailed them and I was like, you guys, your incense in the bathroom is too much.
Love it. Love it. Yes. You might hear from me that I've moved my handbag or those keys, or I don't know, put them somewhere other than in the handbag. But yeah. So I think it's kind of validating for people to hear that, we all have unique sensory sensitivities, and other things that are associated with being an ADHD.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any questions from the audience, but, that's okay. If anyone does, want to ask questions, feel free to join the Caboose app and you'll find me in there. And if you head over to NeuroNuggets in the app, you'll see Zoe's fantastic contributions amongst the others. Thank you, G, for tuning in. And just a reminder, other Divergent discussions coming up, you'll see those via Humanitics in the app or our website. We tend to have one every few weeks with very interesting contributions. Tune into those. And if you haven't tried NeuroNuggets, you can get 5 free credits a month. So I encourage you all to check that out. And thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.